Alright, so hello guys, in this video we will try to understand how provider work under the hood. So yeah, I have initial project set up. This is just a simple counter application, and if you come down here we just have one app bar, then we have a text and then counter, then we have one more function called increment counter, which will just increase the counter and then display it here, right? Now let me just add one more lock here just below the build widget, and I'm going to call this print this lock, so build called. Alright, and if I save this, now if I click on this plus icon, let me just make it bigger, you can see here build called is printing every time we click on the plus icon. That means this whole widget is rebuilding it, but we don't want to do that. We just want to rebuild this widget, that is the counter value, and avoid rebuilding other widget, right? Now to solve that issue we can do it by using a provider package. All right, I already have this provider package added in pubsec.yaml. You can add the same and then continue, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to delete this counter and this set state value as well, and yeah, we can delete this also actually. And if you come down here we have one error over here and error over here, right? So yeah, we will come back to this. Now I'm going to create new class called counter provider. All right, so counter provider. All right, so class counter provider, and that class will extend change notifier. Okay, and I'm going to initialize one variable called count equal to 0, and then one more function called update count, and inside that I'm just going to increase that count. And now since we extend change notifier, we will have one more function. We can add one more function inside that called change notifier. All right, so right now what I'm going to do now is that now to use this provider, the class which we just created, we need to first wrap that material app inside ChangeNotifierProvider like this. And since we want to use this counter provider, we have to mention it here, so I'm going to put it here, then extend this. Let me just extend this, and I have to import manually, I think, just provider. All right, so yeah, I just wrap material app inside ChangeNotifierProvider, sorry, and I mentioned which class that we want to use. We want to use counter provider in this widget. So yeah, so that is how it is done. Now if you come back to this floating action button, we have one function called increment counter. We can delete this and override by like this. Now here I'm going to access that provider like this, provider dot off, and here you can mention which provider that you want to access. We want to use that counter provider, and here you can mention that listen value to false, because otherwise it will rebuild the whole widget. And here you can call that function update count. All right, so now whenever we click on this plus icon, we are just calling this update count. All right, so if you go inside update count, we are just increasing the counter value and then calling one more function called notifier listener. So what is notifier listener do is that it will just inform that in the main.dart, whoever is listening to this count value, please update it, rebuild the widget. All right, but we don't have right now listener in this UI, right? So that is where this consumer will come into picture. So I'm going to add consumer here. Now what will happen is that this consumer will listen to this count value. All right, then whenever we call this update count, this consumer will listen and then increase the value. So that means only this part will be rebuilt. All right, so here again we need to provide which provider that this text will listen. So we have a counter provider, and you can, since we are not going to use this context and this child commented, you can add the underscore value, and here I'm just going to wrap here in provider dot count. Yeah, I think that's all you need to do to use provided in your application. Just make sure you have ChangeNotifierProvider at the top, and whichever provider that you want to use, you can mention it here. And if you want to access or call that function, just call it like this. And if you want to listen to that provider, you can have this consumer widget, and then that's all. Now I'm going to save this, and yeah, we will get this error, don't worry. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to restart. Yeah, okay, now you can see we have a build called here once. Now if I click on the plus icon, as you can see, we don't see any log, build call log. Yeah, only one you will get, because that was when I rebuild the widget. Alright, so that's all guys. I think this is how provider works under the hood, and please let me know if you need more tutorial on that. Okay guys, see you in the next one.